You made it. Welcome to the table. You're just in time to make a dice roll.
For what? What kind of roll are we making?
We're trying to figure out how this system works, so we'll be making an investigation check. Want to do the honors?
Oh, sounds good. I have proficiency in that one. Oh, that's a nat one.
Well, this should prove interesting, if not at least entertaining. Welcome to the Nat One Nerds podcast.
What does Avatar The Last Airbender, Dungeons & Dragons, horrifying monsters, and a group of weirdos all have in common? They're all featured in the Session Zero Heroes podcast. That's what! At SCH, we collaboratively create stories from a variety of tabletop role-playing games, such as Avatar Legends, which is set in the world of Avatar The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, or the most well-known TTRPG, Dungeons & Dragons, the spooky Monster of the Week, and so many more. If you're a fan of unexpected twists and turns as a team of players creates characters thrown into insane worlds of the Dungeon Master's creation, then this is the show for you. Come join us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else podcasts can be streamed, including our website at sessionzeroheroes.com. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Discord for all our news and announcements, and to become part of our amazing TTRPG community that we're building. You won't want to miss out on Session Zero Heroes podcast, so check it out today.
Welcome to the table, everyone.
Hey guys, welcome back to Not One Nerds, and we're back with another fun episode.
Gonna be a lot of fun.
And we have the whole crew here today.
The whole crew is here, finally.
We finally managed to convince our wives to come hang out with us. They thought we were lame, but we convinced them.
They didn't roll in that one.
No, they still think we're lame. They're just here to make fun of us now.
No, it's just our kids finally figured out how to stay awake long enough to record at a convenient time.
Well, maybe for you, our kids are asleep, hopefully.
Well, our kid is not asleep.
Our kid had a 2.5, 3 hour nap until 5 o'clock, so he's good.
Wow. I wish you guys luck tonight.
So you could say that your kid's more on the chaotic side at the moment.
I mean, four teeth will do that.
But yes, probably.
Yeah, I was about to say, speaking of alignment.
That's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, exactly. This topic was inspired by an experience Savanah and I had recently with an old D&D group. And while it wasn't the major factor, or necessarily maybe a major factor, as we've thought about it, we've decided that alignment in D&D was a factor, especially in that I was playing a character that was lawful good, and another player was playing somebody chaotic neutral. And so the characters didn't mesh in-game, and because they didn't mesh so often and butted heads so often, it may have begun to bled out of the game and into the actual real world, affecting, the friendships there. And so while alignment has, in recent editions, especially with 5th edition on in Dungeons & Dragons, it may no longer be super mechanically important or super prevalent, but it is something that is worth very much noting and being mindful of, not only for your own player and yourself, but also for the other characters in your adventuring party and the players who play them as well.
I mean, it's interesting to see the direction alignment has taken over time. Like, it used to play a huge part. Like, paladins had to be lawful good. Like, other monsters, like demons were automatically chaotic evil, while devils were lawful evil. Like, there's so many strict rules, and now you could be a lawful evil Oath of Vengeance paladin if you want to. Like, there's so many different options, and they changed it so that alignment is more of just flavor at this point.
Well, but I also think when you know the general alignment of people in your group, it helps you get a better gauge on what their interests might be in game. So if you have a bunch of neutral chaotic people, they might be more interested in being more murder hobo-y and like looting the town and like whatever. But if you have a group that's more on like the lawful good side, they might tend to follow a story more.
That is fair.
I definitely can attest to that with our current campaign that's ended. All of us were kind of chaotic neutral.
Yeah,
I'd say in the beginning we started out that way.
I would say Axel acted like a pretty good, like, true neutral. Zircon was definitely chaotic neutral, and I'd say Ember was chaotic good.
Yeah, what do you expect from a fairy?
Yeah. Now, talk about alignment messing with parties makes me think of the second campaign I ever played in with Parker. He loved this character. I made a Warforged Artificer whose alignment was true neutral. And he was so neutral that Parker literally had to burn the town down to get him to join the adventure.
I mean, among other things, yeah, there are many reasons why it was such a beloved character of mine as a dungeon master.
It also had nothing to do with the fact that he had like 25 AC at level 2 or anything like that, you know.
It was level 1!
No, level 1 he only had 22. Come on.
I can't hit the dude, I can't motivate the dude.
If it gives you guys any form of reference, he got so fed up with this character that he threw a Death Knight at us at level 3, and I slugged it out with him for like 10 rounds without dying.
I know, I think like everybody else kept making constant death saving throws.
And I'm just sitting there punching the Death Knight with my Artificer.
Oh my gosh.
I wasn't hitting anything either, but, you know.
Oh my god. Yeah, I remember that. But I mean, I guess that brings up another point, is that not only is I feel like alignment important, just being mindful with the other players at the table, but also with your dungeon master, because you know, if you are playing a character that's just so true neutral, in the case of your Warforged, it's very hard to give. There's really not much of a hook to get the character motivated to do anything, really.
Well, and especially getting a character like that involved with the party.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, well, I don't care about these people. I don't know them. I don't care. I'm going to go do my own thing. Like, I found that sometimes, but there are those people that are true neutral, and it's really hard to, like, fit them into the story because their alignment is so much different. And I think that's where alignments are helpful when the DM knows, so the DM can kind of weave the story together and not leave it up just to the players to do.
I think it was alluded to earlier in the conversation, but the motivations, I think you said it actually, the motivations of one character because of their certain alignment, the motivations of a lawful good person are the chances of their motivations being different between a lawful good character and a chaotic neutral character, or even an evil character, it's going to most likely be very different.
Yeah. With, like, a lawful good character, they're not necessarily more likely to follow the story. It's just so much easier to hook them. Because a lawful good character is going to see plot device XYZ, we need to go save the people because it's the good thing to do. We're going to go do it. A neutral character is going to be like, well, what's in it for me? You're not throwing me a carrot. I'm not going to go risk my life to save these people.
Honestly, I don't even think a neutral character would be like that. More of a chaotic character or a slightly more, it's not evil, unlawful, what's the other?
So it goes, I guess,
Sorry.
for those who don't know, I guess we should explain what alignments are.
Had a brain fart.
In a lot of TTRPGs use this alignment system, but it's really mainly from D&D. There is a grid where it goes from lawful to chaotic on one spectrum, and then the other spectrum is evil to good. And there's 9 different combinations, and basically the more lawful you are, the more likely you are to, like, follow a set of rules, tenets, whatever. And the more chaotic you are, the more you're gonna just, like, do whatever you want because, you know, rules don't matter. And same with good to evil, the more good you are, the more you're wanting to work for the betterment of the world. The more evil you are, the more you want to just watch it burn.
A more evil person would want something out of it, whereas a good person would be like, I see a problem, I know how to fix it.
So that's just been my experience, that there are sometimes too many different alignments in a group. What we have to remember is that there are players at the table, and each player wants something different. some are story motivated and such like that.
And that's honestly, I feel like when it comes to that issue, backstories can play a huge part in helping the DM to weave that stuff together. Because if we're going back to the analogy of the burning town, the lawful good character is going to be rushing in to save the orphans, but the chaotic neutral character could be rushing in because the person burning down the town used vicious mockery on their mother at their 10th birthday. Who knows?
Well, you also have to know the type of players at your table. Like Savanah was saying, some people may want more of a story. Others may be more motivated by, like, what can I get in D&D? Or maybe it's, how hard can I punch or how big of a hit.
Oonga boonga numbers.
So also understanding the type of players that you have at the table can be very helpful in understanding why they picked whatever alignment they picked.
Session 0.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that's where I think Session 0 is huge, is if you're playing with people that you're familiar with, great. But sometimes you're playing with people that are new. And so you have to kind of try and create that relationship with the players at your table first before you can create an in-story. But also I think alignments of the players at the table play in a lot to what the alignments that those players create. Like, I know I'm not particularly an evil person, so a lot of the characters that I play tend to be more lawful good, maybe sometimes towards the neutral end, because that's how I live my life.
Yeah, people tend to lean more towards their natural alignments as well. Like you were saying, someone who's generally a good person will like to play good characters because, if you have a moral compass, it feels a little icky to murder people for no reason, even if it's in a pretend game. But for people who like to do that kind of stuff, hopefully not in real life, they can have some fun doing it in the game, and it might clash because the person who does like to play more good, they don't like to watch that, so their character might step in and stop it and cause player friction.
Yeah, and that's what happened in the situation that Parker was talking about. Because one of the characters was making a decision that was more to his alignment, and nobody was going to say anything, but Parker's character, who was, like, truly, like, good, stepped up and cast vicious mockery in-game to cause that player-on-player, which I think ended up bleeding into the outside the table relationship, just because those alignments weren't talked about or weren't necessarily made to kind of fit together. I also think we subconsciously use the alignment chart in other systems too.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, like in the One Ring, we kind of subconsciously took on I'm more on the lawful neutral side, so you're going to have to find some motivation for my character to jump in.
It definitely has a role in every
TTRPG.
Yes, my tongue tie is quite prevalent. Because that's kind of how a game works. You have to have a good and a bad, you have to have a problem for a solution, and you have to have a motivation. And those all play into how you emotionally, I guess, play your character when it comes to what motivates them and how they feel and why they do what they do versus being good or evil or neutral or chaotic or awful.
I think sometimes too, the DM or the GM, depending on what system you're playing in, should really have to kind of step up and sometimes adjust the alignment that's going on. Because I know that's one thing I wish the DM we were playing with had done, was kind of stood up a little bit more in the situation and taken over as the DM and said, hey, look, we're kind of getting like a little muddled here. Like, I understand you're playing to your character. I understand you're playing to your character. But I don't think that's going to benefit the group. And so let's not do that,
But it's what my character would do.
I like that, though, the DM stepping in and kind of, because it's the DM's job to build the story, and so the DM should also kind of help with the clashing of in-game characters and being like, are you sure you want to do this? Because you have to remember that while your characters may have different alignments, you are still a team, and you still need to act like a team. And if you don't act like a team in game, then how is that going to play out throughout the story, you know? You can't really have one character go have their solo arc by themselves. It's not really how a table playing game goes because you're playing as a team.
Well, and that goes into just communication between everyone at the table. You guys are all here to play together, so if your characters that you've made are not motivated to work together, then maybe it's time to migrate that character off onto their own solo adventure and just kind of let them turn into an NPC and bring a new character in. It's really important to have that cohesion in your table, or else it's gonna fall apart. And that's what happens on a lot of tables, is people don't talk about what they want to do, and eventually the table just kind of falls apart because there's not a clear cohesion between all the players on what direction they want to take the story.
Well, and I think too, sometimes the DM is afraid to speak up on behalf of, alignment issues or story issues because they don't want to take away the fun of playing. But I think that's where the DM's job, that's why there is a DM, is in those cases, he can rein it back in. He does, the DM doesn't have to say, no, you can't, you can't be this way. Again, kind of rein it back in, tailor it to, what's going on, remind everybody kind of the alignments of the story and continue moving forward. So that way the cohesion of the table stays in place.
And the DM could also suggest other solutions when there are clashes in game characters, Hey, instead of your character doing this to that character, what if they did XYZ? Or something else, or this or that, part of making it all melt together.
Honestly, I think in a way, if you think about it with alignment, is that alignment helps make communication at the table better. Because if you're understanding of not only your alignment and your character's alignment, and when I say alignment as a player, I guess more of the personality and motivation as to why they're playing the game, why they're sitting at the table, what they want to get out of it. But understanding your player's alignment and their character's alignment, it just helps create better communication and better understanding of what's happening at the table, so that way things in-game stay in-game.
Yeah, and that's when it's good for a DM to be able to be like, you want your character to be this way, but now explain to me, how can you bring this character acting in a specific way into the party? Because we have to keep everyone together. And with that communication, you can have a chaotic, neutral character with a bunch of lawful goods and make it work. Maybe they have an interesting dynamic where the other characters are trying to rein them in, but the player playing the chaotic, neutral character would know, I have to keep it within these bounds, or else there would story-wise be no reason for my character to stick around. And as long as you have those boundaries and know where they are, then your table's going to be just fine.
Who's to say you have to have more than one session zero? You can have another one mid-game to realign everybody to the main goal.
But I think it's actually the idea.
I think that's a really good point, Afton, because, we recently started a new group, and there's been some, not necessarily clashing, but there's not been cohesion, because I think out of the 4 people playing, I don't think the alignments have really, kind of meshed together yet. And so it kind of makes the playing at the table just a little awkward, except for, me and my sister-in-law, who outside of the game are really good friends, and in-game, we're kind of playing the same alignment. We're on the same wavelength, but it's us trying to, play D&D like we want it, versus the other 2 people we're playing with who kind of are just their own thing too. So
understanding other characters' alignments can give you a glimpse and an insight into the players who are controlling them and what their motivations and what they're wanting to get out of the game. Just as the alignment of your characters gives insight in what they want to get out of the adventure and what their personal goals are. It kind of almost is. It's not quite the same, but it's definitely a good indication of both sides, both of the in-game alignment and the motivations for playing the game out, at the table.
Well, and just like we said, that's just another part of communication is everyone has to have the same intent of playing if they want to play at the same table. Back in the first campaign I played in, I ended up leaving around level 3 because a lot of the other players, like, I was really excited to go on an adventure, like, go with the story the DM had come up with. So they decided that they wanted to just, like, hang out at an old tavern and, like, open a brothel in the basement and brew alchemy potions and stuff. And I'm just like, guys, what are you doing? This is not what I signed up for. And I just kind of faded out because I wasn't having fun anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, is that you obviously want to do everything you can to make a table work out in the long term. But at the end of the day, if you're not a good fit or somebody else isn't a good fit at the table and they choose to leave, that's okay. That doesn't need to be a reflection of them as a person. It's just, sometimes the motivations for playing the game are just so different that there's not really, unfortunately, really a good way both in or out of the game to bridge that.
You gotta find your people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you gotta find your people.
What if your people move?
Yeah, guys, what if your people move?
Well, then there are wonderful VTT systems that can help you play over long distances if you're willing to learn technology.
You move with your people. That's what you do.
You move with the people. With your people. Oh my gosh. So
Yeah, that's.
I did miss a little bit of the conversation. Have you guys talked about Paladins in depth at all?
No, not
I mentioned
really.
it a little bit.
Brandon's briefed the topic slightly. It's his favorite
Yeah,
character.
I think I was there for that part. I wanted to bring up Paladins though because I think that is the one instance where alignment can affect the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons, because regardless of what the alignment is for your paladin, I feel like one of the things that could really cause you to break your oath as a paladin is if you have a major alignment shift. It's always important to be mindful of your alignment and other people's alignment, but if you're going to play a paladin, you have to be extra mindful of your paladin's alignment and their actions that they do, because I played a paladin before and I did things that may not be considered part of my alignment or typical of my alignment, and my DM has shot me text saying, hey, just a heads up, if I feel like if you keep doing this, it is going to lead to a potential breaking of oath if you do it too often. And I was like, and he explained why, and I was like, okay, I can see that. And so then when we played again, I had to be more conscious of that and be like, okay, and so I think with Paladins, because as Brandon was saying earlier with Paladins, you could play an Oath of Vengeance. So Oath of Vengeance, you're going to play a more nitty-gritty character. And so you're not going to necessarily be lawful, or you're not necessarily going to be good aligned. Heck, even I think there's an Oath of Tyranny, and that's an evil alignment. But again, if you deviate from that alignment too heavily, I feel like that's a really good indicating factor of, you might begin to break or risk breaking your oath.
Well, and that's something interesting that Wizards been doing lately, is they've been shifting away from alignments for paladins and more of oath tenets. So, like, you can be an Oath of the Crown paladin, and as long as you're following the noble that you've sworn your oath to, your oath is fine. Like, if your king commands you to go murder a town full of innocents, ironically, you break your oath by not murdering that town full of innocents. Or, if he asks you to save them, then you would break it by not saving them. Meanwhile, there's also, like, the Oath of Glory paladin, where you literally just make an oath to being awesome. Like, you're just there to get glory. Like, with that one, you break your oath by being a coward. It's really interesting seeing the different dynamics that they've brought in. I actually find the Oath of Vengeance Paladin to be an interesting one because their oath is all about avenging people and protecting those who have been wronged. So, for example, if you are an Oath of Vengeance Paladin and you tell someone that you're going to go help their friend that's been wronged and then you forget to do it, you could break your oath by doing that because you didn't get the vengeance that you promised.
Yeah, that's a really fair point, and it is interesting to see that a little bit more from Wizards and from going into the newer D&D 2024, or as we here at the podcast like to call it 5.5 edition, because that's really what it is. But I don't know. I guess if there still is a class where alignment might be just a smidge, you need to be a smidge more mindful about. I still feel like it would be Paladins.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, and again, it's not a hard fast rule. It's just I feel like alignments, just like how alignments are important for understanding alignments for both characters and players at the table is for communication. I think alignment is also a good way, especially for a dungeon master, to begin indicating whether somebody's deviating from their oath or not if they're playing a paladin. It could just be a way to be like, oh, I've been noticing this. Let's talk about it, either in game or off to the side in between sessions, and see what the motivations of this paladin character are.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like paladins so much, is I feel like there's a lot of roleplay built into the class itself.
Yeah, same with warlocks too. There's a lot of good stuff to work with as a dungeon master for sure. So I guess the last thing, at least for me, is that this was said a little bit earlier, and I didn't get a chance to share this, but talking about how the dungeon master is supposed to be good at facilitating the fun of the game, and part of that is being mindful of alignment. And honestly, I know we kind of joked at the beginning of the episode about Brandon's super duper neutral Warforged robot character and how frustrating that was as a dungeon master. And that's valid. It's valid to feel a little frustrated with that. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for the dungeon master to get extra creative. So it's a give and take. So as a player, you want to not purposely make things difficult for the dungeon master or other people at the table, but at the same time, it's expected of the others at the table to also work with what is given. It's a give and take, and that's kind of the foundation, one of the foundational aspects of collaborative storytelling, which is what all tabletop role playing is.
It's all about the flexibility of everyone and how well they work together. Like we said, that cohesion is the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I just feel like being aware of and mindful of alignment, both for player characters and for the people at the table, it can be very helpful. Again, it doesn't have to be a hard, fast thing. It can be very much used for flavor. But I think just understanding, even though Wizards is moving away from alignment a bit more, I think still being mindful of alignment it's just a good way to help bring the table a little bit together, because, as I said, that was one factor that, at least on my part, I feel like caused some rifting at the table, is because I was playing lawful good character, this other character was playing chaotic neutral, and as Brandon joked earlier, I was just doing what my character would do. That could be a very dangerous statement to make.
And it all comes down to the role play. Like, you can absolutely play into what your character is going to do. This is exactly how they would play it. But as a player, don't make a character that's going to do something that would jeopardize the whole campaign.
Yeah, or if you notice that your character is going to jeopardize and you're kind of in the minority, because your character can change alignment. They absolutely can. And I've had characters change alignment. I had one go from lawful good to chaotic good. She just got so fed up with trying to play by the rules and being restricted by them that she's like, nah, my moral compass is too precious to me, and I'm just going to do what I feel like needs to get done so that things can get done. And so if you find that in your game, then yeah, just, see if there's maybe a way to kind of tweak your alignment or tweak your character a bit more so that they at least better mesh with the current adventure group that you're with in game. But yeah, has anybody got any other last minute thoughts on alignment?
I think we covered it in pretty good depth.
We did pretty good.
We pat ourselves in the back.
Listeners, if you have thoughts on alignment, we would love to actually know what your thoughts are on this, just because it can be such an ambiguous aspect of D&D. And while Wizards of the Coast have been moving away from alignment slowly but surely, it's still present in 5th edition, which is still the most popular edition of Dungeons and Dragons. So we'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences, and maybe why you should be mindful, or why it's good that they're moving away, or maybe why it might be bad that they're moving away from alignment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and you can reach out to us via our email, nat1nerdspodcast@gmail.com, or you can message us on Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah, thanks you guys again for coming and listening. We always appreciate your feedback, and honestly just coming to hear us ramble about the game that we love. So hopefully we were able to at least entertain you for a bit, if not help you learn a little bit more about how alignment works and how it can help a table either stick together or fall apart. So, with that, we hope you guys have a good night. This is Nat1 Nerds signing off.
Happy rolling, guys.